Good evening, folks. Happy Tuesday. It's that time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're fresh off week 11 where we're getting closer to the playoffs. The playoff picture's starting to heat up a little bit, and that brings about some interesting discussion. We saw a few games with big implications on seedings and division standings, particularly the Broncos versus Kansas City Chiefs. We saw in the NFC, the Eagles versus Lions on Sunday Night Football, Seahawks versus Rams, and they all played big implications, as well as the Bears' victory over the Vikings. So with that being said,
hey everyone, it's Agent Warrior X, and welcome to another NFL Pickup Week 12. I'm your co-host, Agent Warrior X, with Nikki Stees. So yes, Nikki, about what happened last week with Week 11 was one of the wildest weeks we've ever seen since Week 6. I am not gonna kid you. Do you remember how we said that Madrid game was supposed to be that time where Washington was supposed to win that game? I got that wrong because I was never expecting a Tank Bowl, International Tank Bowl overtime. I was not expecting that. I wasn't expecting the Falcons going overtime with the Broncos. Uh, I was expecting the Falcons going overtime with the Broncos, the Falcons going overtime with the Panthers, and I was never expecting that there were a few upsets during the week.
and hey, that's the old expression, any given Sunday. We know anytime there can always be an upset. But what stood out in this one is this wasn't necessarily an upset, but to start off, the Chicago Bears beating the Minnesota Vikings. Chicago Bears were kind of that interesting 6-3 team going into it, where they had a good record, but we weren't sure how good a team they really were. And they did end up beating the Minnesota Vikings. What I noticed from this is Ben Johnson, has done a nice job turning this around. Secondly, the Detroit Lions heavily missed Ben Johnson. Their offense last year versus this season looked like two different offenses, with Ben Johnson as offensive coordinator versus without him. It's amazing how that one change of coach changed the Detroit Lions offense. It doesn't look like the same juggernaut as it did with Ben Johnson leading the way as the coordinator. So that goes to show you how sometimes coordinators can make a huge difference. And that's what we saw here. So interesting. Hey, the Seattle Seahawks, man, Sam Darnold, he looked like he reverted back to his New York Jets, Carolina Panthers form, especially his Jets form against the Rams, throwing 4 interceptions. But the Rams looked like a juggernaut. I'm going to give them props on that. But Seattle, they'll still be in the mix, but I don't really got them not sold them as championship contenders after that performance.
Yikes. After seeing Sam Darnold playing absolutely terrible in terms of the NFC West showdown, I'm not going to be too surprised to say that the Rams should they should definitely retain their NFC West title. But considering how the Lions last year, they were an offensive juggernaut before the defensive injuries with Aiden Hutchinson. This year is a completely different story. It's like a tale of two teams, but except the difference is that the offense is now looking sluggish and the defense is now looking like a juggernaut. As for the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Detroit Lions game, that last call was not a PI. Where in what way? In what way do you see a pass interference on the defense? He barely even touched AJ Brown. In fact, he was even nowhere near AJ Brown. I'm starting to think the officiating is now looking like one of those leagues where it has rigged moments where it's not a PI it's not a fumble it's not that. No, no, no. There is no excuse for you to not make the right call. In fact, what does Michael Oliver and the NFL referees have in common in that last game with the Detroit Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles? Trading for rigged moments.
And we clearly saw as day that was a questionable call, but at the same time, it's similar to what happened with the Eagles and Broncos, where the lack of PI call at the end. The Eagles didn't get the benefit of the doubt. They ended up losing the game, but at the same time, they shouldn't have put themselves in position to blow a fourth quarter lead. Now, in this case with the Eagles and Lions, it's a slightly different scenario where the Lions were on the wrong end of the call, but they shouldn't have been in a position where they only scored 9 points for this to even happen. So it's kind of like two Eagles game with a similar ending in opposite directions.
You know, I'm going to be completely honest with you, Nicky, and say that the Packers versus the Giants game was an absolute amazer. Don't get me wrong. I got the Packers winning that game, but I was hoping Jameis Winston. Well, technically, I had the Giants winning it, but I got that wrong too. But I was hoping Jameis Winston could really pull an upset against Green Bay. He played his heart out, but that one interception really cost us. I kid you not. I love Jameis Winston as a fan. A lot of people do. When he was on the Buccaneers, when he was on the Browns, when he was on the Saints, when he was on the Giants, he brought a fun team. Now with Dart coming back eventually, I think this could potentially be a team to be reckoned with in the future when this team becomes healthy. They just need the right coach. They just need a right coordinator, and they need an O-line. A lot of Giants fans, including myself, said we need an O-line, but you desperately need a receiver. You desperately need a receiver to complement Malik Neighbors. What if Scatterwood comes back healthy? What if he comes back healthy? I'm hearing a lot of questions about should the Giants draft an O-line, should the Giants draft a safety, or should they draft a receiver? Ultimately, we will get that later in the future.
Yeah, but there is a lot that went on, and it was interesting too. We saw the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen had a phenomenal game, 6 combined scores between passing and rushing to dethrone the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Buffalo Bills, it's business per usual. Cruise through the regular season to at least make the playoffs. Now we got to see come playoff time, but it's interesting with Kansas City looking like they might be the odd team out or barely make the playoffs. Does this open a window of opportunity for Buffalo come playoff time to finally maybe make a Super Bowl berth? Interesting question.
I'm going to put it this way and say yes. If the Kansas City Chiefs miss out the playoffs, they have a shot of winning the Super Bowl. Now remember, you guys play against Buffalo later this year. And I'm going to say that about that game, I called it. Hey, Mitch, I called it. I said the Buffalo Bills and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was going to be a shootout. You have Baker Mayfield doing Baker Mayfield things in terms of elite talent. You still got Mbuka. I understand that. But considering how this played out when the Buccaneers scored after that interception from Josh Allen's still doing Josh Allen things in the end. I said it from start to finish. Josh Allen thinks does that out. Josh Allen thinks. And ultimately, I'm going to say that this is one of the greatest games we've ever seen. Now, as for the Rams and Seahawks we mentioned earlier, there is no excuse. There is no excuse for you to turn the ball over 4 times. Yes, you have JSN doing amazing, but it's not really enough because the defense simply outplayed them. We mentioned the Kansas City Chiefs, how they could potentially miss the playoffs. If they continue to struggle like this for the rest of the year, the internet will just explode into a nuclear implosion.
And there's always that. It's an interesting possibility. It could very well happen, but it was also interesting. There was a Team of the Week graphic. I'm going to share it in 1 second. I'm going to see if I can share the screen real quick. It's going to be kind of small, but
Don't
see if
worry, I'll get used to that.
so. Team of the week. It's got Josh Allen for quarterback. Fair enough. Had an excellent performance. Christian McCaffrey for San Fran. Sean Tucker running back for the Bucks. You had Tito McMillan, wide
Yeah,
receiver.
T-Mac, in other words.
Yeah, you had Drake London, wide receiver for the Falcons. Interesting enough, they both played each other.
You
George
have George
Kittle.
Kittle.
Yeah.
The O-line, I got to give credit to the Jaguars. Don't get me wrong. I was expecting Los Angeles to beat them. But wait a minute. Does this sound familiar to you? Does this sound familiar to you? How the Chargers played against the Giants? We beat them. We beat them in week 3, I think. Myles Garrett, no big surprise because he is a really good defender for the Browns. Micah Parsons, oh boy, this is going to haunt the Giants for quite some time now. Even with him out of the NFC East, this is still going to haunt the Giants fans for a while. Jordan Brooks from the Dolphins, Kyle Duggar from the Steelers, and then Will Lutz from the Broncos.
Yeah, definitely. Will Lutz definitely stands out. 5 for 5 on his kicks. Made a huge role in the Broncos' victory over Kansas City and them soaring to 9-2 and potentially a shot at home field advantage the way it's looking right now.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of football, did you hear what happened on Monday night with Cam Scatterboo?
Oh yeah, he was at
He was at the
wrestling
Garden.
show?
He was at the Garden last night for John Cena's final show at Monday Night Raw in his final year, and he got into beef with the Giants with Abdul Carter, Cam Scatterboo, or Wan'Dale Robinson or Brian Burns got beef with the Judgment Day. When I saw this, like, oh wow. Well, first off, his leg is pretty much hurt. Don't get me wrong. And then second, after that beef they had, they released T-shirts of Cam Scatterboo. They just released T-shirts of Cam Scatterboo in terms of popularity. I'm starting to feel like Cam Scatterboo is getting a lot of perks this year. Not because he became a Giants, but when the moment that he stepped foot in the turf on a gridiron, Cam Scatterboo, before he got hurt, was a fan favorite. Yes, I could argue say Saquon Barkley's better, but in terms of head-to-head with him, Cam Scatterboo has the advantage in terms of touchdowns and yards.
Yeah, well, for now, hey, he's already got plenty of likability in that area, and any public appearance he can make can boost his likability and boost his marketability till he returns to the field. So he's just going to take advantage of those opportunities.
I kid you not. A lot of Giants fans, including myself, is experienced the first time before the season started. We had hope until our season came crashing down into reality again.
But there's always plenty of room for improvement in the future. And for a lot of these teams, week 11's over. The good and the bad, you move on. For the good teams, congrats on your win, but you got to get ready, turn around, get ready for next week. For the teams that didn't have such a great week, put it behind you, start fresh week 12, and let's see how it goes. And we start off Thursday night with two teams that won their respective games in week 11. The Houston Texans at 5-5 hosting the 7-3 Buffalo Bills, fresh off that shootout with the Bucks.
Oh boy, this is going to be a good one between the Bills and Texans. We saw how the Texans barely beat the Titans. We already know what happened to that. There was no big surprise that I said the Titans pretty much pulling an upset, but I got that dead wrong. As for Buffalo, I predicted them to win over the Bucks. And I said, Josh Allen doing Josh Allen things. Baker Mayfield can still get the job done, but ultimately Buffalo will come out a winner. Now you have Josh Allen coming off after a massive shootout they had in Buffalo against Tampa. But against Houston, this is a completely different story. However, Houston needs an O-line. With CJ Stroud potentially out for the year, I mentioned earlier, I see this as a one lopsided. Buffalo over Houston.
Yeah, absolutely. And while the Texans are they're a competitive team, they still got a lot missing. Obviously, CJ Stroud being one of it. And they don't have the same spark they had his rookie season. And the Buffalo Bills, they're trying to build momentum for the playoffs. And like you said, that lack of offensive line for the Texans, it at least gives the Bills an advantage. And Josh Allen's likely to have himself another good game. Although sometimes, it could be more competitive, but I will pick the Bills to win this one. Now we actually...
More with you on that one. Next up, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Chicago Bears. Now, Chicago was coming off a comeback victory against the Minnesota Vikings. Pittsburgh Steelers was coming off a victory against Cincinnati after an Unk Bowl on Thursday night. So we know we know Aaron Rodgers is going to be a solid quarterback. But in terms of Chicago, they have a slighter advantage in terms of defense and offense. This could potentially be a close one, but I see the Bears winning it.
Yep, same here. I got to go with the Chicago Bears in this one. And the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, really, they've been pretty inconsistent. They've had their flashes and their good moments, but in games like the Chargers game on Sunday night 2 weeks ago, we saw the first go-around against the Bengals on Thursday night. We even saw at moments in the Seahawks game, even the Jets week 1, when the Steelers narrowly won. Their defense struggles, and they're inconsistent. This could be a great opportunity for DeAndre Swift to have himself a good game on the ground and potentially good enough for the Bears to win. And for the Steelers, you don't have the luxury of playing against the Cincinnati Bengals every week. So
who else do you have besides DK Metcalf? No one.
All right, now you got to come back crashing down a little bit and play, the Chicago Bears, who are a better all-around team. So I'll take them to win this game. Moving right along, this should be relatively simple.
Ooh, that's a good one. Cincinnati versus New England. Patriots are coming off a really great win on Thursday night against their division rival. And by the way, I did love their division rival jerseys. Cincinnati, they were coming off a really tough loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers the last time they had it. Joe Flacco, I'm starting to think it's time to hang it up. After this season, it's time for you to hang it up when Joe Burrow comes back. Pittsburgh dominated them. I think New England could do the same thing. Drake May looks like an MVP caliber player. You have Stephon Diggs doing Stephon Diggs things. You have Christian Gonzalez, a really good defender. You got Lavondre Stevenson doing great. You have a really great O-line. Say no more. New England over Cincy.
Yep, same here. Because even if Burrow comes back, it's not going to fix that offensive line woe, and it most certainly does not fix, like I've said before, an all-time worst defense going against the New England Patriots team who's found their stride. Drake May's starting to come to his own. You also have Trayvon Henderson starting to get adjusted. He's playing better recently. So I'll take New England Patriots to trash this Bengals defense and cruise to another win. As far as Flacco goes, yeah, definitely. Look, he's reached his ceiling. He has a Super Bowl MVP. He has that run to go with it. He will get his jersey retired by the Ravens, but in recent years, he his flashes and his moments, but he's not getting past his ceiling, and he's got around 40 years old. It's time for him to move on and look for other pastures.
Speaking of cat teams, we are going to be killed. The New York Giants versus the Detroit Lions. Lions are coming off a tough loss against Philly. That was a very winnable game for them. Jared Goff, most of the time on the road, he's been excellent. But after Sunday night, yeah, I don't know. The Giants, they were coming off a slightly tough loss against Jameis with the Packers. Jameis Winston, even though I still love him till this day, Jameis Winston played his heart out. Despite the fact that he had one touchdown with Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary, I'll give credit to because he had 2 touchdowns. And the defense, it's looking really, really sluggish. The defense is nearly god awful in every stats. We allowed more yards in terms of defense. We allowed more passing yards, and the sacks is dead last. This is no excuse for this team to officially time to say that, you know what, we need a different coordinator and we need a new head coach. And a lot of people, including myself, say this. We need an O-line. I said it before. But considering how this could play out, the New York Giants will be the first team to be eliminated from the playoff contention. Again. Lions over Giants.
Yep, and I too will go with the same here. Yes, while the Detroit Lions lost to the Philadelphia Eagles, they would technically, as of today, be eliminated from the playoffs, but we still got to wait. Got to go through Thanksgiving, through Christmas, all the way to week 18, see where it stands. And for the Detroit Lions, clearly, even with their flaws this year, they're still a much better team than the New York Giants are currently. So give me the Lions to bounce back from the Sunday night loss against the Eagles, move to 7-4, and try to build momentum from there. For the Giants, I mean, at this point, we can pretty much say it. Better luck next year. But the next game might have some interest to it.
In other words, it ain't good enough next year. It's better off having the top pick in the draft. We got the NFC North showdown between the Packers and the Vikings. This could be a good one, but it's going to be one lopsided. The Packers will take the victory against the Vikings.
And you look at what J.J. McCarthy did against the Bears, particularly there was one interception to Kevin Byard where he's standing around. He's looking at his receiver. He's making it way too obvious where he's going. Byard reads this perfectly like a veteran does, and he gets the interception on McCarthy. That was just one of his 2 interceptions. So obviously J.J. McCarthy, and he's throwing a pick in all of his starts. So he's obviously still got some work to do to get used to the NFL level. Going against this elite Green Bay Packers defense isn't going to do him any favors. Give me the Packers to feast and have a field day and beat the Minnesota Vikings.
There will be no big surprise once the Packers go back to the NFC North on top if they would win more games.
And then the next, do I even need to say it?
No, you don't, Nikki. Seattle Seahawks versus Tennessee Titans. Never mind. You know what? Scratch that. Never mind saying the Giants being the first team eliminated because they got the Tennessee Titans being the first team eliminated for the playoff contention. Giants could be the second because both of them are contending for the top pick. Tennessee, we already mentioned that they were coming off a tough loss against their division rival. Cam Ward actually looks pretty solid, but it's not good enough. It's not good enough to face against the Houston defense. Seattle's coming off a tough loss I mentioned earlier, but there's no excuse to have 4 interceptions. So take your frustration out against one of the weakest teams in the AFC.
Perfect opportunity for Seattle to get revenge. Perfect opportunity for Sam Darnold, the stat pad, have himself a good game, make people forget about last week for a little bit, and give Seattle a win, move them to 8-3, give them momentum headed into Thanksgiving weekend. Or wait, I should say headed into Thanksgiving weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, you said that.
Give them that win. Easy opponent. Titans are contending for the Tank Bowl. The difference between them and the Giants is the Giants have some hope with Jackson Dart. The Titans still have a long way to go.
Exactly. But then you got another good matchup. Kansas City Chiefs versus the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are coming off a bye week. Kansas City is coming off a really tough loss. Remember what happened last year with the Chiefs and Broncos? They got a blocked field goal. This year, not this year. Colts, with Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor becoming MVP candidates, this could potentially be I see more Daniel Jones as a comeback player of the year player, not an MVP candidate. Again, Jonathan Taylor looks like a very good running back. So I won't say Jamar Gibbs is better than Jonathan Taylor, but I see J- Jonathan Taylor more better than him. Give me the Indianapolis Colts over the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep, I know it seems a bit odd. This is going to be odd because I've always been by the belief of you never count Kansas City out, never count Mahomes out. He's the new Tom Brady. And to some degree, that may still be true. Am I going to count Kansas City out of playoff contention? No. Is it a long shot? Yes. They already off a loss to the Denver Broncos, who were 8-2 going into week 11. Denver beat them by field goals, proving you don't need to necessarily have great quarterback play to beat them. So Daniel Jones, he certainly had a rebound year, but Jonathan Taylor is the true MVP of the Colts team. And he could have himself another phenomenal game fresh off a bye week against a Kansas City team that they can't solely rely on Patrick Mahomes anymore, but unfortunately, they're in a position where they really have to. And it's not really working out. But the Colts, they got talent on both sides of the ball. That's why they're in the position they're at 8-2. I feel like they're a better all-around team than the Broncos, so I'll take them to beat Kansas City, keep that momentum going, and staying on top of the AFC.
You know, between those two, I could see this. I'm going to see the Kansas City Chiefs missing the playoffs by losing out. I mean, yes, they lost out in terms of the Broncos. Yes, they lost out against the Chargers in week 1 in Brazil. But Mitch got a question. Who is worse, Tennessee or New Orleans? I think Tennessee is way worse than New Orleans. In terms of situations like this, they still need a quarterback. They still need so the Saints, they still need a quarterback. They still need a receiver, and they still need an O-line. Yes, you got a great solid defense with Kool-Aid McKinstry, and that's pretty much it. So overall, I see the Titans as the worst team in the AFC. In terms of the conference-wise, the Titans are the worst team in the AFC, and the Giants are the worst team in the NFC.
All right, so yep. And in this one, I could see Kansas City possibly going like 9-8, possibly missing out, or maybe missing out at 10-7 on a tiebreaker for the 7th seed. It's certainly possible, knowing how tight it is in the AFC playoff race. And
Look what
speaking
happened
of teams,
with Seattle last year. They went
right.
10-7 and missed the playoffs. They lost out in terms of the Giants, and they lost out in terms of the division rival games.
Right. And speaking of playoff picture, you got a team whose only way in the Ravens is to win their division, but they're only one game back. They have a shot at it, and they got a perfect opponent in the Jets to stay float with the Steelers.
You know what's crazy? I picked Baltimore to win the division over the Pittsburgh Steelers. We got the Baltimore Ravens versus the New York Jets. No big surprise. Lamar Jackson will do Lamar Jackson things, but in terms of what happened last week against the Browns, I don't know. I mean, yes, you still got Mark Andrews and you still got Derrick Henry, but they were struggling minorly against Myles Garrett. They were lucky to get that win over Shedeur Sanders. And speaking of Shedeur Sanders, yikes. We'll get to that soon. Baltimore over New York, except the Giants.
Yeah, I will take the Ravens to win this. Yeah, the game against the Browns, the way they did it was not impressive. But then again, usually those division rivalry games usually end up being tighter than expected. And for the Jets, I mean, they're trying in their games, but they don't have anything to work with. And for Lamar Jackson going up against that Jets defense who has nothing at this point, this is the perfect game for Lamar to ball out, flash his former two-time MVP self, and give the Ravens a win to go above 500.
I'm starting to think the Giants are more relevant than the Jets at this point.
Yes, I mean they've always are. By default, they're the number one New York team. So especially when both teams are bad, they're going to lean toward the number one team by default.
Speaking of the Browns, we got the Cleveland Browns versus the Vegas Raiders. No big surprise. The two magic words that I'm going to say. Another tank ball. We have the Cleveland Browns versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Cleveland was coming off a tough loss against Baltimore. Vegas Raiders was out coached by Brian Schottenheimer and Dak Prescott. There was no big surprise. We mentioned earlier that this is officially one of the tank bowls in the AFC that could contend for the number one pick. Who could be the tank bowl winner? Simple. Cleveland. They are officially starting Shedeur Sanders, from what I'm hearing. Could this be perfect timing for him to throw as much touchdowns, or could this be perfect timing for Max Crosby to outplay him? Simple as that.
If there was one game you were going to start Shedeur in to see what he can do, it would be this game against the Raiders. We saw last night the Cowboys had a field day with their defense, despite Max Crosby's best efforts. Now, we got to wait and see with Shedeur how this plays out. Now, he didn't look that great for his playing time against the Ravens, but then again, was Dillon Gabriel really playing that much better? Yes, he did statistically play better for the playing time they both got, but by how much better was it truly? I guess we'll see what Shedeur can do against the team like the Raiders, which should be an easy task. Time will tell. As far as the game goes,
the funny thing is, the Raiders were supposed to get him. The Raiders were supposed to get Shedeur instead of Asher Genty. Yes, I understand Asher Genty to help replace Josh Jacobs, but I think if the Raiders was supposed to draft a quarterback instead of to help Geno Smith mentor him, this would be in a whole different situation.
Exactly. That's kind of what we thought it was back in March. They're bringing in Geno as a mentor role, respectable mentor, but now it looks like Geno Smith might be another rookie's mentor next season, maybe with a different team. I mean, at least the Browns, I'm going to say the Browns because they do have a good all-around defense. You can't forget Myles Garrett, one of the best pass rushers.
They still got Quinton Judkins and you got Jerry Jeudy. Don't forget Isaiah Bond. I don't know why.
So, I mean, the Browns do at least have some talent. They just don't have any structure right now. And the Raiders are just even worse. So I'll take the Browns to win in a sloppy tank bowl.
Next up, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Arizona Cardinals. I think there's going to be no surprise. Jacksonville should bounce back. But I think the Cardinals could have a shot of winning it. Trevor Lawrence, yeah, you still got Trevor Lawrence doing all right. But in terms of that against the Chargers game, that was awful. I mean, sorry, that game was amazing. They won it. My mistake. Jacksonville looked like a really solid offense. But could they do this against the Cardinals? Yes. Jacksonville over Arizona.
Yep, I will take the Jacksonville Jaguars to win this one. This Jaguars team has played tougher teams than the Cardinals. They just beat the Chargers and they beat Kansas City, who despite their current form are still a more formidable team than the Cardinals. So the Jaguars should be able to beat Arizona in this one. So, I mean, at this point, I'm starting to realize with the Cardinals, there's actually bigger problems than Kyler Murray within that organization. Because they were trying to blame Kyler Murray for the problems, but you've seen them without him. They're still dealing with a lot of the same issues. It starts at the top.
Benching Kyler Murray or Having him out for quite some time is doing nothing to fix the team. They should have drafted Malik Neighbors over Marvin Harrison Jr.
And now the Cardinals are stuck where they're at. It says how much long? I'm telling you, Jonathan Gannon come Black Monday, he's gone.
And it's not just Black Monday. We hardly have a few coaches and GMs and coordinators could be gone as well. Now this is going to be a good one. The Philadelphia Eagles versus the Dallas Cowboys. We've seen this time and time. You remember 2 years ago that Philadelphia said that the gauntlet between the 49ers, Cowboys, Seahawks, and potentially the Giants on Christmas. I remember that game. We made it close to against you guys the last time. But could this happen again? In terms of the lack of offense and the defense looks solid. But could this be the same thing in terms of the lack of offense? We may never know. Dallas, they were coming off a dominant win against the Vegas Raiders. Dak Prescott looked amazing. George Pickens looked amazing. And of course, CeeDee Lamb doing CeeDee Lamb things. So in terms of these, I don't hate the Eagles. I hate Dallas. But in terms of this, Dallas over Philly. I think Dallas could have a slight advantage in terms of the offense and defense in terms of balance.
This is an interesting matchup, but for the Cowboys, it's Dak Prescott now. The question is, what's he going to do going against the Philadelphia Eagles defense that's come along a lot in the past couple weeks, that is getting stronger as the season goes along? Jordan Davis is starting to play up to some of his potential. You got Jalen Hunt starting to slowly improve as the season goes along. You even got Andrew Makuba at safety flashing some of his potential. Dak Prescott has played good throughout the season. He's got weapons on offense, and that's helped them win 4 games. Now, as far as their defense goes, we even saw week 1, the Eagles' offense, particularly with Jalen Hurts, they made a lot of plays in that game against that Cowboys defense. So this could be one of those games where the Eagles kind of get their wings back, so to say, on offense. And they could edge out the Dallas Cowboys for a victory. But knowing how competitive these games are, despite the difference in records, it could be a close call, though. So I'll take the Eagles to win it, but I'm expecting a competitive game.
This is a tank division. This will be no big surprise. The New Orleans Saints versus the Atlanta Falcons. They lost Michael Penix Jr. for the year. Kirk Cousins still sucks. They still got Bijan Robinson doing great, and they got Drake London doing great. But New Orleans can dominate. Give me the Saints over the Falcons.
At this point, I don't trust the Falcons one bit. They're just losing momentum more and more as the week goes along. I'll take the Saints to win this. Maybe a combined 29 to 30 points at best.
I could see them winning at least 29 points.
So I'll take the Saints in this one. But the Sunday night matchup actually looks interesting. The Rams at SoFi Stadium hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
You know, this is the 2021 divisional matchup between the Buccaneers and the Rams.
I was just thinking about that.
We saw how Tom Brady dominated against the Rams, but ultimately Matt Stafford outplayed the GOAT. But I will say this. This is a completely different year. The Rams, with Matt Stafford doing Matt Stafford things, you still got Puka Nacua. You still got a great defense. You still got a solid O-line. You still got a great head coach and a defensive coordinator by the great last names of McVay and Shula. Those two are legendaries. But I will say Rams over Buccaneers. Yes, you still got Baker Mayfield doing great, but I think the Rams could come out on top.
And my thing is with the Buccaneers, I want to reiterate what I said on the 3-point blitz. The Bucs are a very talented team, but they struggle in big games. We saw against the Bills and Patriots, two of the top AFC teams. They played with a ton of heart, but they couldn't close the deal and win those games. We saw against the Eagles, they played a competitive game, but they couldn't close the deal. So that's at least 3 games against the top teams they played. They put up a fight, but they just could not close out, and they could not win. And against the Detroit Lions, too, similar story. We're still one of the better teams. That's why I think like the Bucs are a good team, but I don't see them as contenders for that. And the Rams are looking like a legit contender for the first time since that 2021 season. They've actually been healthy throughout the season. They're 8-2. They look like they're getting better as the season goes along. The Bucs defense is at times a bit suspect. Give me Matthew Stafford to have a good games. Their running game's pretty good with Williams. And I think they'll end up beating the Buccaneers in this one. Not without a fight, but I don't trust the Bucs to close these big games.
And that's exactly why the Rams have been. In fact, Los Angeles sports throughout the entire 2020s has been nothing more than a city of champions. The Dodgers winning in 2020, the Dodgers repeating back-to-back 2024, 2025, and the Rams. Well, let's just say the Rams have been doing very well. And
And
as
you
for
had the
LAFC and the LA Galaxy, they also won championships too.
And let's not forget, even though this was in a bubble, the 2020 Lakers won the NBA championship.
That too.
So all around, LA's been having a really strong 2020s, kind of like the Boston teams of the 2000s with the Red Sox, Patriots, and that one chip the Celtics won.
Yep.
And now, Monday night, San Francisco 49ers, Carolina Panthers. Here's something that's interesting I just realized. It's a long shot, but the Panthers are technically 1 game back from the Bucs. They both have 6 wins. The difference is Panthers have 1 more loss. It's unlikely. I still see the Bucs winning that division, but there is a small chance the Panthers could win that division as of today. That would be the biggest shock of the season if that were to happen. I don't think it's going to, but it would be crazy if the Panthers somehow won that division over the Bucs and stole it from them in the end. But I don't think it will.
You know what's crazy? We've seen this year some surprising teams. The Colts were the surprising team of the AFC. The Patriots were the most surprising team of the AFC. You had the Panthers. The Panthers are a surprising team of the NFC. The Bears are a surprising team of the NFC. And as for the rest of the divisions, Seattle, they're a surprising team too, but not by a long shot. But considering how Bryce Young surpassed Cam Newton in terms of most passing yards, I could see this as another great game. It's going to come down to the wire, but ultimately the 49ers will triumph.
Yeah, I got the 49ers winning in this one too, because they have George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey back. Not to mention, we've seen recently McCaffrey, now that he's actually getting more playing time after missing almost all of last year, he's starting to play like maybe not the exact same level as his 2023 stuff, but he's playing really good football, and it's helped the Niners win some games. I see the same happening against the Panthers here. You still got George Kittle on that other side. I'll take the Niners to win this game and move to 8-4. Keep those playoff hopes alive. Because that's another thing we got to talk about. It's going to be a tight race down the stretch in the NFC for the playoff picture between the NFC North and the NFC West. You got NFC North. You got 3 teams fighting. You got the Chicago Bears, who currently lead the division, the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions, all vying for playoff spots. But then in the NFC West, you got the Rams, Seahawks, 49ers. Between those 6 teams, you only get 2 division winners, and then that leaves room for only 3 wild card teams. So there's a good possibility someone could finish with a winning record and miss out as the 8th seed between those 2 divisions.
You know what's amazing about this division, about the NFC? The NFC looks like a wide open division in terms of future contenders. We mentioned the Giants with Jackson Dart before the Malik Neighbors and Cam Scotty got hurt. Looks like a very solid. It looks like on paper this team looks very solid all around. The defense on paper looks elite. They just had bad coaching and they have bad coordinations. And as for the Panthers are one of the few surprising teams I'm seeing. We mentioned earlier that the Bears are a surprising team with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson turning around this team. I mentioned earlier that the the Colts so far this year they look like a surprising team. I thought the Colts was supposed to be dead last with Daniel Jones, but turns out there was something that nobody talked about. Whenever you're on a bad team and you say they cast you away, you are guaranteed to unlock. You are not guaranteed, but you are going to give a shot to see how this plays out come the regular season. And Daniel Jones has been playing similar to what he did in 2022 with the Giants. But I think Daniel Jones will not win MVP this year. I see Daniel Jones more as a comeback player of the year because despite the fact that he has a torn ACL, despite that he was playing terrible on the Giants in 2024, and despite the fact that Jonathan Taylor wants out because of the problems they had before Jim Irsay, God bless the dead, had issues with him. But in terms of Kansas City, I don't see this as a Super Bowl hangover. I see this team similar to what we saw with the Houston Astros back in 2024. I have a feeling the Kansas City. This is my bold predictions. We mentioned how the first team eliminated. For the AFC, the Titans. The Titans will be eliminated. The Giants will be eliminated. If so, there are three ways that the Giants could be eliminated this year. They have to either lose, or Dallas loss, and Seattle loss, or just basically lose with Philly. So I want to say that this team overall needs some changes by Black Monday. You got to go over what happened, especially those 4 blown leads you had. You know which one I'm talking about, Nikki. But this, in my opinion, could be one of the craziest NFL years we've seen in a long time. The holidays are upon us, and this is my favorite time of the year, by the way. The holidays is upon us, and all I could say is, come week 12, this could potentially be another wild week. And I'm going to say that this could potentially be one of the few seasons where you had a few underdogs that's surprising. You had some teams that destroyed their tank and just missed out on just simple quarterbacks or wants and needs. We had similar situations like this with the Patriots last year. We had the same situation like this with the Giants last year. We had the same thing that happened with the New Orleans Saints and Houston Texans. Overall, this year looks completely different. If I remember correctly, the last time the Indianapolis Colts won a division was around either 2020 or 2006 with Peyton Manning. Because if I remember correctly, the Indianapolis Colts, most of the time after 2006, with Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning, they have been yikes. Yes, you wasted his final years of Philip Rivers, but that's pretty much it. But as for the AFC West, the last time the Broncos won the AFC West was in 2015 when Peyton Manning was on his last legs. Don't get me wrong. I feel the same way with Broncos as much as the Colts. They have been struggling sometimes. But I will say this. for week 12 and for future, I could see two teams winning the division in terms of the AFC South and the AFC West. The AFC South will belong to the Colts. The AFC West will belong to the Broncos. The two teams from the NFC, the NFC North, it's going to come down to the wire. It's going to be very close by week 16. So ultimately, I'm going to say it's going to come down between the Packers and the Bears. But if it's a coin toss, give me the Bears. It's about time somebody else wins the division. And for the NFC South, it's going to be close, but not by a long shot. The South will belong to the Buccaneers. But the true division where it lies is the NFC West. Between the 49ers and the Rams, like we saw back 4 years ago, I could potentially see this as a close one. Give me the Los Angeles Rams over the San Francisco 49ers.
And like to what you said, you brought up the parity in the NFL. We've seen it, particularly in the AFC, is where we see the most parity. We see some in the NFC with the 49ers now playing like a potential, looking like a playoff team. You still have the Seahawks, but the Seahawks are playing better than last year. Rams playing better throughout the season consistently. Washington, it's a complete 180 from last year to this year. Last year, they were looking like they had something going. This year, it's like last season never happened the way they're playing. That's due to injuries, but you see how 1 year makes a huge difference. The Falcons last year looked like they were in the mix to win the NFC South until late in the season. This year, the exact opposite. New England Patriots, complete 180 from last year. Bottom of the league now, they're at the top of the AFC. Denver Broncos were good enough to make the playoffs, but this year they're the top of the AFC. Colts were average. This year they're the top of the AFC. Kansas City's looking like a middle-of-the-pack team this year. Completely different from last year. Ravens could still win out the AFC North, but it's not going to be in the same fashion they did last year if they do. There's a lot of difference going on, particularly in the AFC.
You know, I'm going to say this and put it this way and say that in terms of missing out the playoffs, I could see at least two teams missing out with a winning record. Houston and Kansas City. Kansas City could miss out the playoffs, but still end up winning with a winning record, similar to what the Seahawks did. For the NFC, the teams that I see missing out is either the Lions or the Panthers. We already had the Buccaneers far ahead of pretty much everything. We have the Bears are a surprising team in the North, and we had the Eagles. Obviously, no brainer, no big surprise because they will soar their way to the NFC East once more. And for the NFC West, there could be a close one, but I still see the Rams and the 49ers making it to the playoffs. We could see Seattle miss out. We could see Green Bay miss out. We could see Green Bay miss out. We could see some teams miss out of the playoffs this year in a surprising twist. This year looks completely different so far. And who would win the Tank Bowl this year? It's going to come down to the wire come week 17. You have the Tennessee Titans and the New York Giants. They could potentially, it's going to be a toss-up between those two. If the Titans win at least one another game or two, they will destroy their tank. If the Giants lose pretty much every game, they will win the Tank Bowl, what they should have done last year.
And Yeah, it's definitely going to pick up, though. There's going to be a lot of interesting elements to this. I could see NFC side Panthers either 8 or 9 wins. Teams potentially missing out. Maybe the 49ers, either the Packers or Lions, depending on how they finish the season. That's going to be the big if, though. AFC could be Kansas City or maybe Jacksonville, one or the other. One will probably get the 7th seed. The other will probably miss out narrowly. But it's going to be an interesting race. We got to wait and see what happens.
You know, I'm going to say this, Nikki. This is my favorite time of the year in terms of the holidays. So by next Tuesday, my background will be much different.
All right.
And you know what? To be honest with you, Thanksgiving and Christmas is my favorite holidays because, you know, spending time with the family and all that type of stuff. But football is never the idea of being part of it. We remember what happened 2 years ago when we played against you on Christmas? That was one of those Christmas games where I really enjoyed how Tommy DeVito played until he got benched. And then all of a sudden we nearly came back against you, if ultimately leading to your team a late season collapse and Dallas winning the division. I don't see that happening this year. I still see you winning the division, but I could see a potential late season collapse. I just got to watch the team even further in terms of the offense because recently the Eagles offense has been sluggish. They just got to get it together and they have to play a lot more better.
Particularly on the offensive side of the ball. But the fun part about this time of year is seeing how it plays out. For me, I'm just going to go week to week, starting week 12. We'll see what happens there and just take it 1 week at a time. And for Thanksgiving, for me, it's a perfect day for football. For me, for Christmas, I lean more toward basketball on Christmas.
With the Knicks, right? With the Knicks and the Lakers. Those are the two teams that are traditional for Christmas. The only two basketball teams that are mostly for Christmas. I remember playing the Lakers on Christmas 4 years ago. And my goodness, James Harden wasn't just the best player before he got traded, but Patty Mills went off as well. But in my perspective, in terms of Christmas games for football, we're going to get to that real soon because 2026 can't come sooner than later because there's going to be a lot of changes by the end of the season by Black Monday and potential tank ball winners.
Yep. So I think we covered everything we were going to. Thanks again, Agent Warrior, for joining. Appreciate it. For everyone that tuned in, David, Bruce, Mitch, thanks for joining us in the chat. It looks like you gained a fan in David. If you want to put your link in the chat.
Well, basically, I gained like 2 fans, basically. Bruce was right about, he said he was right about everything I said, and David said I'm legendary. I won't get there yet, but I'm just getting my ways in terms of podcast reputation a little bit more. So please forgive me because we're in the mid season to the second half because the NFL pickups could potentially be good for next season when I start my first full season if I don't have work or anything, but I will get there.
And this is the perfect platform for you to shine on. So again, thanks everyone for tuning in. For your host, Nikki Stees, for my co-host, Agent Warrior, thanks for joining us.
Until next time, goodbye, my friends. Bye for now.